Welcome to Bad at Goodbyes. Each week on our show, we spotlight species from the IUCN Critically Endangered Red List. These are plants and animals with decreasing populations, nearing the edges of extinction. We'll share species, research, information, and conservation proposals, and then we'll spend a chunk of the show opening a space for contemplation and awe. We'll perform a kind of meditative soundscape of gentleness, quietude, reflection, and maybe mourning. There is a very low likelihood that any of these species will survive the 21st century, and so perhaps we might acknowledge their passage with a moment of our attention, with the recognition of our kinship, and with a commitment to personal and systemic change. Thank you for listening. On today's show, we consider the Koyama spruce. The Koyama spruce is a critically endangered evergreen conifer native to Eastern Asia, specifically central Japan and the Nagano and Yamanashi prefectures. The Koyama spruce is a medium-sized tree, typically reaching heights of 60 to 80 feet, although some specimens can grow as high as 100 feet tall. It has a conical, triangular growth form, like a classic Christmas tree shape. It has a straight trunk that can measure up to 2 to 3 feet in diameter at maturity. The branches of the Koyama spruce are relatively short and stiff, spreading horizontally and sometimes upward curving from the trunk. Its dense needle leaves are about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch long. They're dark green in color, and the needles are somewhat diamond-shaped. The needles are arranged radially on the twigs, meaning that they point outward in all directions. So rather than like being clustered on the top or bottom sides, they radiate outward in all directions, giving the branches like a full and bushy appearance. The Koyama spruce has smooth gray bark that may become scaly with age as the hardened outer bark splits and fissures from the pressures of new inner bark growing beneath it. Bark color in trees is the result of the combination of secondary metabolites. So these are organic compounds like tannins, lignins, carotenoids, and anthocyanins. And these secondary metabolites contribute to a plant's like secondary metabolic processes. So like not primary processes like growth, photosynthesis, and reproduction. This is like the other stuff. So for example, tannin, which lends a reddish brownish hue, is antimicrobial, meaning that it protects the trunk against bacterial infection. And it tastes really bitter, So this serves as a disincentive for potential herbivore and insect feeders. Lignin, which is creamy yellow and whitish, provides rigidity and strength, protecting the tree from physical damage. Carotenoids, which can produce yellow, orange, and reddish hues, have antioxidant qualities, helping the tree clear toxins. And anthocyanins, which can produce red, purple, and blue colors, provide photoprotection. So that's like protection from excessive light and UV radiation. So all of this is to say, bark color is the result of the balance of these secondary metabolites. Redwood bark, for example, has a high concentration of tannin. Birch bark has a high concentration of lignin. The Koyama spruce's gray results from the combined concentration of its secondary metabolites. I do want to note, though, that this is a simplification. There are a massive amount of organic compounds that may influence bark pigmentation, but hopefully I'm getting across the idea that underlying and informing the outward visual appearance of the bark are foundational biological systems. Or to say this another way, the gorgeous stark gray color of the Koyama spruce's bark is beautiful because it pleases my human eyes, and it is beautiful because it is a visual document of wildly complex life-making processes, the result of millennia of adaptation. And time and exposure. The coloration of tree bark is also influenced by weathering. Exposure to blanching sunlight, wind, and rain can cause bark to fade or change color over a tree's lifespan. Koyama spruce is a monoecious conifer, meaning that separate, distinct male and female cones are present on the same plant. Spruce blooms in May and June with small, cylindrical, reddish-brown male pollen cones and larger, greenish-brown female cones. Koyama spruce is wind-pollinated. The wind carries pollen from male cones to female cones on another individual. So we do not believe that Koyama spruce can viably self-pollinate. But if wind-carried pollen finds purchase on a compatible female cone of another individual, fertilization occurs. Those fertilized ovules develop into seeds within the cones, and as they mature, the cones become a rich reddish purple and hang downward from the spruce's branches. These mature cones are roughly 3 inches long and 1 inch wide. Each cone has many thin and woody seed scales and smaller brocked scales which protect the seeds. When the maturing cone is ripe, this is generally in the autumn, it opens, releasing its seeds. The seeds are black, each with a pale brown wing, adapted for anemochory, which means wind dispersal. So the released seeds are carried by the wind, and if they land in a favorable microclimate, they will germinate. Koyama spruce requires very restrictive conditions for successful germination and seedling growth. In its natural habitat, scientists have observed that new seedlings exclusively establish only in mineral-rich soil, on sloped rocky surfaces, and near their parent trees. The spruce is usually found in small stands of 10 to 20 individuals, all likely sharing similar genetic lineage. In the dream, I am a small child again. In the dream, I am in my grandparents' yard under a brilliant blue sky, surrounded by family, the towering limbs and trunks of uncles and aunties, my parents nearby. We are celebrating, and though I do not know what, the swaying adults and their laughter in the wind and their closeness is a comfort. I am the firstborn of my generation and grew into the sweet, tangled love of my elders. That is true in my life, and true in the dream. The Koyama spruce is native to the mountainside slopes of central Japan, specifically the Akaishi and Yatsugatake mountains in the Nagano and Yamanashi prefectures. These mountain ranges are part of the Japanese Alps, a bioregion of rugged, high-altitude terrain with jagged peaks and deep valleys and a mix of temperate and subalpine forests. Within this bioregion, Koyama spruce is highly localized, found only on north-facing mountain slopes between 3,500 and 6,500 feet above sea level, and only in a roughly 60 square mile area. This is steep, rocky terrain with thin soils and outcrops of bedrock. These mountains were formed over millions of years through a combination of geological processes. The peaks at the northern end of the Koyama spruce's range, like Mount Aka and Mount Nishi, are the result of volcanic activity. So this is lava erupting, cooling, and building up over roughly 1.5 million years. The peaks at the southern tip of its range, like Mount Akaashi, are the result of tectonic uplift and erosion, so formed as tectonic plates collided and pushed up the landmass. And then over millions of years, weathering and erosion have shaped the peaks into their current form. This region has cool summers, cold winters, and high annual rainfall. Summer temperatures reach highs in the low 70s, and winter lows can drop into the single digits. Annual rainfall ranges from 60 to 80 inches per year, much of this falling as snow during the winter months. Winters bring strong winds, heavy snowfall, and occasional landslides. The region also weathers relatively frequent typhoons. The Koyama spruce shares its mountains with Japanese cicada, Japanese stonecrop, Siberian dwarf pine, Japanese pygmy woodpecker, snow monkey, Japanese squirrel, Erman's birch, rockfoil, Japanese oak silk moth, alpine avens, cicadeer, varied tit, Japanese grasshopper, Mary's fir, giant horntail, Seaball's primrose, copper pheasant, and many, many more. Historically, the most prominent threat to Koyama spruce was extensive logging during the late 19th century. Rapid human development and industrialization demanded timber, leading to widespread deforestation throughout the spruce's range. And so this affected both the Koyama spruce itself, whose wood was prized, and also the habitat in general, challenging possible regeneration of the species. This increased development also brought the construction of roads and infrastructure, which further fragmented the habitat. Though large-scale logging has ceased, its effects ripple into our present. Logging operations often replanted these forests with Japanese larch, which is a deciduous conifer that now competes with the Koyama spruce for habitat resources. Human-induced climate change is also a major concern. Rising temperatures and the increased frequency and severity of extreme weather, specifically typhoons, threaten the remaining Koyama spruce's population. The Koyama spruce is protected under Japanese law, prohibiting logging and trade, and most of its range falls within a national park. Off-site conservation programs at botanical gardens and arboretum across the globe are in place, cultivating specimens to safeguard genetic diversity. Nevertheless, the Koyama spruce has been considered critically endangered on the IUCN Red List since 2011, and their population is currently in decline. Our most recent counts estimate that less than 1,000 Koyama spruce remain in the wild. Information for today's show about the Koyama spruce was compiled from Scientific Reports, Volume 11, Issue 1, BMC Plant Biology, Volume 22, Issue 530, the International Dendrology Society, an article from May 7, 2017, the Journal of Forest Research, Volume 16, Issue 4, the Journal of Japanese Forestry Society, Volume 81, Issue 3, the South African Journal of Botany, Volume 150, the Gymnosperm Database, Wikipedia, and the IUCN. In a moment, I would like to perform some music in hopes of opening a space to be in contemplation of all of the other lives with whom we share our earth. But first, I want to clarify that this music isn't exactly like for the Koyama spruce. Like, I don't want to put meaning upon the Koyama spruce, but instead, I want this sound and this space and time to be an opportunity to express my very human awe, and also to be a moment to process and consider my own relationship to other life, and then specifically as that life may near extinction. And so I will create and sit in the space of sound and contemplation, and I warmly invite you to join me. I honor the life force of the Koyama spruce. I will carry its human name in my record. I am grateful to have shared time on our planet with this magnificent being. And I lament the ways in which I and my species have harmed and diminished this species. So in the name of the Koyama spruce, I pledge to reduce my consumption and my carbon footprint and curb my wastefulness. I pledge to acknowledge and attempt to address the costs of my actions and inactions. I pledge to resist the harm of plant and animal kin or their habitat by individuals, corporations, and governments. I pledge my song to the witness and memory of all life, to a broad celebration of biodiversity, and to the total liberation of all beings. This has been Bad at Goodbyes. Thank you for listening. Until next time, let's take care of each other and all of our kin. Goodbye.